What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Hearthstone players everywhere are getting some really awesome news recently, which is of course the announcement of the new adventure expansion, One Night in Karazhan. While we don't know a ton about the adventure just yet, we have seen 7 new cards that's going to be in the expansion, and we're excited to talk about them and their potential in constructed play. And we should hopefully be going over pretty much all of the Karazhan cards as they get announced, so definitely stay tuned for future videos. And let's jump right into it. The first card we have is Enchanted Raven, which is the only druid card we've seen so far. Enchanted Raven is actually super sweet despite not having any abilities itself. Being a 2/2 creature for 1 mana is actually really awesome, and it opens up Druid towards the more aggressive archetype, giving them another good 1-drop in addition to Living Roots, and helps enable some awesome beast synergies. Playing this guy on turn 1 and then putting a Mark of the Wild or maybe even a Mark of Yasharj on it lets you get that 4/4 creature on just turn 2, which is going to trade really favorably for sure and get you a ton of value. We can only wait and see how good Raven will actually be, and while we don't think it will be as strong of a 1-drop as maybe Undertaker or Zombie Chow, it's definitely good enough to see constructed play. The next card we have is Kindly Grandmother, the 100 card that's been revealed so far. Kindly Grandmother is both a fantastic card and actually really interesting because of the depiction of the Red Riding Hood story. Kindly Grandmother starts out as a 1/1 creature, but when it dies, it leaves behind a 3/2 wolf. The stats on this card are great as it gives you a total of 4 attack and 3 health for the price of 2 mana. In addition, it also has a lot of resilience to board wipes and other such things due to the death rattle effect. And both halves of the card are actually beasts, and so it enables a wide variety of synergies in the hunter class. This card is super reminiscent of Haunted Creeper actually, and while not having as good of a distribution of stats, it does have the benefit of both halves being beasts. In addition, it has some interesting synergies with Death Rattle themed cards, such as N'Zoth in Standard or maybe Baron Rivendare in the Wild format. Overall, Kindly Grandmother is a very interesting card and will potentially be a staple in the new Hunter decks. And the next card we have is probably my favorite that's been announced so far, which is Firelands Portal. The only mage card that's been revealed so far, Firelands Portal seemed like it will probably follow in Unstable Portal's footsteps of RNG and insane value. The card seems like maybe one of the best arena cards ever printed, and we wouldn't be surprised to see it get played in constructed as well. For just 7 mana, you get to deal 5 damage to a minion or your opponent's face, and you get a random 5-cost minion. So since a 5-cost minion of course costs you 5 mana, and you're essentially just paying 2 more mana to staple on a slightly worse fireball to your 5 mana minion, overall it is relatively nice value, at least on paper. Sure, the random minion might sometimes not be that great, but this card definitely still is insane value overall, and sometimes you'll get 5 drops and actually get to skip the drawback, like maybe a Doom Guard or an Earth Elemental. There's a lot of really powerful 5 drops that you can get that are actually a benefit from being summoned as a random effect. Firelands Portal provides a crazy amount of value, and despite the slight RNG aspect, it's definitely a card that we expect to see at least a little bit of play in constructed, and is going to be just monstrous in arena. The next card we have is Ivory Night, which is the only paladin card we've seen so far, and Ivory Night is actually quite good, and honestly it just oozes value. 6 mana for a 4/4 where the stats is on paper pretty bad, but when we factor in the ability, Iron Knight is for sure going to be played in a ton of paladin decks, if not all of them. When you play Ivory Night, you get to discover a spell and gain health equal to the mana cost. And this card's kind of a little bit like maybe Antique Healbot, where you get a good amount of health for maybe a little bit poor stats, but that's without considering the spell that you actually get to discover. Sure, sometimes you might discover, 3 paladin secrets and not have a particularly good time, but despite the RNG aspect, there's a lot of really powerful paladin spells, and Ivory Night will on average get a solid amount of value, and will likely be played in pretty much any paladin deck that actually needs some healing. Next up we have Ethereal Peddler, which is the only rogue card that's been revealed so far at the time of making this video, and Ethereal Peddler has a very interesting design, but it honestly probably will need other cards before it can work particularly well. 5 mana for a 5/6 creature is already, reasonable stats, and Ethereal Peddler does have a pretty sweet ability I guess on top of it. When he comes into play, he reduces the cost of cards in your hand from other classes by 2. And this is honestly a really interesting ability, but unfortunately Rogue just doesn't have quite enough ways to actually put other classes' cards into its hand to justify this card getting played. If we see some more cards though that steal cards from your opponent or get cards from your opponent's class into your hand in Rogue being released in the set, then we might actually be able to have this card see play and a new Rogue archetype actually come to fruition. Obviously, making a bunch of cards all cost 2 less mana is a very powerful effect. I mean, if Emperor Thorson's taught us anything at least. And overall, it does have a lot of potential, but there just isn't enough support to back up Ethereal Peddler, at least right now. Next up we have Barnes, who is our first legendary on the list, and Barnes definitely has a lot of potential for abuse, especially in some kind of weird cheese decks. 4 mana for a 3/4 creature is not the best of stat lines, but Barnes' effect is honestly so insane that it kind of just doesn't really matter. When you play Barnes, he pulls a 1/1 copy of a random minion from your deck into the battlefield. And while this might not seem that amazing at first glance, it might actually be one of the best abilities on any Hearthstone card in the game. I mean, imagine if the only minions in your deck are Barnes and Malygos. That way when you play Barnes, you just get a 4 mana Malygos from your deck, and then you can just dump your hand of spells and just kill your opponent on the spot. And it's not just combo decks, honestly. Barnes is good in, I mean, you could just play a deck full of Death Rattle minions and cards like Ragnaros, because Death Rattles and effects like Ragnaros are still very powerful despite being made 1/1 creatures. Barnes is definitely a card that you have to build the entire deck around, but the deck you build around him is likely going to be a top tier one, and we do have very high hopes for this card. So our final card on the list and our second legendary that we're taking a look at today is the Curator. 7 mana for a 4/6 with Taunt isn't necessarily amazing when you consider cards like Druid of the Claw, but it's also not the worst stat line, and having Taunt does make up a little bit for the card being relatively slow in terms of stats, as Taunt minions make up for costing a lot by protecting you on the turn that they come down. But what about the other effect, you know? When you play the Curator, he adds a random Beast, Murloc, and Dragon from your deck into the hand. And this is actually a really cool ability and is super flavorful, considering that most of Hearthstone's tribes are actually represented in it. Now, what can we accomplish with this type of effect? Well, all we have to do is put this card in a deck where it can consistently draw all 3 types of cards for us. It might be good enough at, 2, maybe you don't have to draw all 3 types. So what decks can we play a Murloc, Beast, and a Dragon in? Well, Dragon's probably the easiest, since things like Alexstrasza, Ysera, and Azure Drake, honestly you could get Malygos from this card. You could definitely fit a Dragon into your mid-range / control decks. But what about Beasts? There's actually a lot of good class Beasts in Druid and Hunter, but cards like Stampeding Kodo are still quite reasonable, and can probably fit into most control decks trying to make the Curator work. But what about Murlocs? So Cold Light Oracle could be an interesting option, as it gives you some card draw, and Corrupted Seer actually allows for some board control as well. The Murloc part of it is a bit of a stretch though, but there are a few that can be played and constructed with a little bit of a sacrifice, I guess. At that point, the Curator becomes a 4/6/7 mana taunt that draws 3 cards, and we've seen from other previous versions that drawing 3 cards is potentially worth as much as 5 mana if we take Nourish as a comparison, and that's honestly incredible. So I can definitely see this as being a potentially powerful card in some of the more slower control decks in Standard. So those are some of our thoughts on the new cards we've seen so far. Definitely let us know what your favorite new cards are in the comments below. And it looks like that's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.